It's Ascot time. Hello and welcome to the SVK Betting Podcast. Ascot not Christmas just yet. The Festive podcast, though, is coming up soon. So before we get into any of the racing this weekend, I want you to scroll down below. I want you to subscribe to SVK, like the video, and share some comments for some of your Christmas fancies. Do that right now. Pause the video. And then you can start playing it when we talk about this weekend's action. Right, Tom Collins and Ross Millar here, as per usual. Last week was an okay week in terms of selections. Lanesborough won for myself as a nap 4-1 into 11-10, which was nice. Titan Discovery won for Ross, put up on Friday at a big price, around 6-7-1, I think, in a competitive handicap hurdle. But we did, Ross, have plenty of runner-up performances last week, which is pretty frustrating.
Yeah, just sort of. I always try and sort of go back and, particularly with myself, I can be a little bit loyal and sort of go back and check that you're not sort of ignoring information that doesn't suit your needs. But I think, given the chance to do it again, I think I'd come up with the same selections. I certainly wouldn't have found Glenn Gooley in the December Gold Cup. It would probably been the first off my list. But then when you had a good look there, I suppose there was lines of form there that suggested he was too big a price. So happy with how we're tipping along. And as I often say in the comments when people are praising us or criticising us, normally the latter, that everything to do with horses is to do with luck. They are a particularly peculiar animal at times, and you just have to accept that and understand there's no such thing as a certainty and just keep rolling away.
Yeah, a couple of our place horses last week with Vincenzo, Holy Smoke ran nicely. And then when it came to the Albert Bartlett at Cheltenham, not the real one, but the trial, they call me Hugo, who was beating a nose, and Ross had Conman John, who was beating a neck further back in third. So a little bit frustrating. Briefly on that race, before we move on, I thought the ride that Derek Fox gave Conman John wasn't great. I wrote about it this week in Expert Analysis. And for all that my horse looked unlucky because he lost by a nose, literally on the jam stick, I thought you should have been the one that was celebrating there, Ross.
Yeah, I must admit. I mean, I like Derek Fox because he is a horseman, and I probably put a little bit more value on that than perhaps others do because of my background. But he was on the best jumper in the race for certain. I'm sure the data would have backed that up. He got a freebie off the front on a confirmed stayer who should have improved for going onto the new track from the old track, and he somehow still managed to let it turn into a sprint. I'm sure you'd want it back again. I just wonder, though, whether that's starting to become a bit of a theme with Derek Fox, and unfortunately, Father Time waits for no one, and just think that maybe they've got some good young jockeys in the wings there that might just need to sort of start giving them a bit more of a chance, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I imagine if those three horses, Carl and Rig, they call me Hugo, and Conman John meet again when it comes to the Cheltenham Festival, and they're ridden in similar ways, but the pace is hotter, I think Conman John will probably reverse the form with the winner in the second from last week. But it was a good race, and hopefully we have plenty more good races coming up this Saturday. We have 3 Ascot contests to bring you as feature race previews, as well as one at Haydock, and that's the one we're going to start with, the Tommy Whittle, which should be run as the first race of these 4 at 2:05 p.m. Now, the Tommy Whittle is not a race that I love, Ross. It's not the prototype of a contest that I look for bets, but I know it is for you. A staying handicap chase. Lots of good horses in this year's renewal, but no real standout. We've got Jack's Parrot currently heading the market around 7-2. Grand Geste is in there at 4-1. Saladin's Son at 5-1. And you can go slightly bigger prices about others. Last year, we had a 16-1 winner of the race in Egbert, who was pretty hard to find. Do you think it would be similarly tough this year, or do you like one of the market leaders?
No, I think it is a tough race to find. I thought it was a fairly moderate renewal. I mean, Tommy Whittle is a race I used to absolutely love, sort of in the depths of the winter, and it's sort of lost its luster, hasn't it? Really, like so many of these races, particularly the sort of good handicaps. I think it's very tough. I think you have to give a chance to Jack's Parrot. He's back on the same mark. This yard we know can plot a route from one year to another in terms of getting horses, cherry ripe for a race. But he wasn't good enough bottom line this time last year off this mark. Could well be the same again. I thought you could give chances to plenty of them. The one I came down on, and he's a selection I won't be having a bet in the race, is Grand Geste for Sue Smith and Joel Parkinson. Only had 2 starts, novice over fences, but he's just looked like he's jumped fences all his life. He's very slick, he's very quick. He's run over 2 mile 4 both times. Just got outgunned in the closing stages, but last time out that was at Newcastle, beaten by Alcedo. Alcedo's come out and run really well since, was just touched off last weekend off a £6 higher mark. So the fact that Grand Geste goes here off £5 higher suggests there's still juice in the mark And I think the step up in trip will suit. It's not an absolute certainty because he doesn't look like the strongest stayer at the end of 2 mile 4, but he did when he ran over 3 miles at Haydock in a maiden hurdle, finished third, got outpaced, stuck on again in the closing stages. I think this sort of trip could suit. And I think it's really interesting as well that they've gone from 2 mile 4 to 3 mile 1. It's a yard that's going along really well this year. I've heard lots of people saying, "Oh, what's Joel Parkinson done to the yard?" And he's done nothing. He's been there for years. It's only really a name change. But the last sort of back end of last season, when you certainly cottoned on to them, and beginning of this season, they've really rolled along very well, and they've been consistent, which isn't always something I'd associate with the Sue Smith yard. So they're certainly having a good time of it. With that comes confidence that they can sort of spot these races and plot them out. I think it's really interesting. They go straight up into this sort of trip. It's got a low weight. I think he's got a good chance.
Yeah, on that point, I was going to mention actually the low weight. Carries just 10 stone 2. How much weight do you put into the fact that a horse is carrying such a low weight in a staying contest when the ground could be on the soft side? Are you someone that always wants to see a horse at the bottom of the weights and you mark them up? Or do you not mind if there's a horse in here carrying 12-2, like Top of the Bill and Velvet Elvis are?
Yeah, and you sort of go back to sort of horses like Royal Pagaille, who's lumped really big weights. But what I would say is he is a genuine graded horse. So when he was in handicaps, he was comfortably the best horse, and class will prevail. When it's a more sort of, if you like, compressed mid-range sort of handicap, I think a low weight on desperate ground is a big advantage, and you'll find horses that are just able to run a few pound above what they perhaps would if everyone was running off 10 stone 7, for example.
Yeah, Grand Jest then for Ross, off a nice racing weight. I'm also going to go for a horse towards the bottom of the handicap, which is My Silver Lining. Again, this is not a betting race for me. We are pretty clear, I'd say, when we like a horse and when we're just putting a horse up as a token selection in one of these feature races that have been allocated for the pod. I found this very difficult. I liked My Silver Lining stamina. Coming into this race, this horse generally runs over further. She has form up to 4 miles, and she will be plugging on at the end. We have seen some of these Haydock races, including the Tommy Whittle in the past, just really become a dour test of stamina. Only 2 or 3 get home. I think she'll finish this race, and hopefully she'll be better than a couple of the others in here who do finish. So I wouldn't be surprised if she grabbed a place. She's a decent price. Currently 7-1 at the time of recording this at 1 p.m. on Thursday. Hopefully that price holds. I won't be betting in the race though. I'm just going to put her up as my token pick. Right. Dropping down south now to Ascot for those 3 featured races that I spoke about earlier in the show. We're going to start with the Grade 1 Long Walk Hurdle, the 225 at Ascot. Pretty competitive renewal again this year, I thought. Crambo, the winner of the last 2 editions, comes back and tries to make it 3 in a row. He's currently about 6-1 for Fergal O'Brien, which I thought was a fair price, but he's pretty difficult to like off what we saw last time when he was last of 8. But we know that this horse can bounce back. He is further down the market than the 2 market leaders, which are both owned by JP McManus. Honesty Policy is your favourite for Gordon Elliott, and then Impositoire is your second favourite. There are some other good horses in here, including Strong Leader. Ross, what did you make of the race, and who do you like?
I was interested by the market. I have to say, I'm surprised that Honesty Policy is favourite. I'd have had Impositoire as favourite. I echo everything you say with Crambo. I mean, through his career, I found him very difficult to be with. He's just sort of horse. You never know quite what you're going to get. Strong Leader, I think, sets a really decent standard. And therefore, the fact that Impositoire beat him last time, and I thought beat him with a degree more comfort than the finishing result suggested, makes him my selection here because he's got a bigger field. He'll probably get a stronger pace. It won't turn into such a dash. I just think he's a horse, and we see it all the time, particularly in staying handicap division, actually, or staying division, I should say, not handicap division. You see these horses that get on a roll, and they stay on a roll, and they can improve and improve and improve. And it happened with Paisley Park. He started from a fairly low base, got into the winning habit, and just kept on winning. I think this is a horse that's got legitimate claims to be, Stayers Hurdle champion at Cheltenham. I think he'll win this. I don't see a problem with the track. He's won right-handed at Sandown and Exeter, I think. Nicky Henderson's starting to really get a nice bit of consistent form. Nico de Bourneville, of course, still has his attractors. He's given some really good rides in the last 2 weeks. He's given a couple of rides where you wonder whether he sort of, could have done a bit more. But I think when his blood's up and he's in a race of this nature, I think there's still a very, very fine jockey there.
Imposatoire then for Ross, 100 to 30 currently, second favourite behind Honesty Policy at 3 to 1. I did say that Crambo's 6 to 1. He's actually now 8 to 1. So forgive me for a slip up there. You mentioned strong leader. I think the race kind of goes through him a little bit. He has some good form in the staying division, but we know this horse is a good ground horse, right? He's run on soft or heavy 5 times in his career for one victory, and that one victory it came at Newbury, but he beat 3 horses, one of whom was Flight Deck, who had no chance. Langadan in November, no chance, not off quite clearly. And Montmoral was the other one, and he wasn't the horse of old. So I don't think the ground is going to be suitable for strong leader, Ross. And we should briefly mention that the ground is likely to be on the soft side. Currently listed at the time of recording is good to soft, for all that the going stick readings are pretty low. I live 20 miles from Ascot. It has been chucking it down all of Thursday. I think the ground will probably be on the soft side, but the track does drain well, right?
It drains well. It'll be interesting to see, what fresh ground they give from Friday into Saturday. Yeah, the ground to go against strong leader. And I also think last time, he had everything going for him. Sean Bowen in full drive. The cheek pieces went on. I was disappointed to see that no one really asked Sean Bowen whether he felt the cheek pieces made a difference, because he didn't win the race. So from our point of view, it didn't. But did it make him easier to ride through the race? And if it did, where was the benefit at the end of the race? I think he's a really nice horse. He's not a great jumper. He's not a superstar. And I think that the UK division particularly has been sort of pretty poor in the last 2 seasons. So he's probably capitalised on that. I think there's a couple of interesting horses in this, and he might well finish third or fourth.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he'll be winning this race, but he's an interesting runner. He has been a notable drifter in the markets over the last couple of days, probably due to the weather forecast. I think he was 7 to 2 out to roughly 6 to 1 at the time of recording this. My selection, again, is going to be a token pick at this current moment. I won't be betting in the long walk, but my token selection is going to be Honesty Policy. Now, I hate defaulting onto a favourite, and the reason why I won't bet him is because of the current price. But if Ross is correct and I'm correct, then Imposatoire may go off favourite, and Honesty Policy, coming back off a long layoff, could drift a touch in the market. If he goes to 7 to 2 or a little bit higher, I'll have a small bet on him. If not, I'll be leaving the contest. The reason why he's my token pick is that he's unexposed. He has some very good novice hurdle form from last year, obviously a Grade 1 winner. And he is the unexposed type in this contest, the one that could take a step forward. And I know Imposatoire is improving, but I just feel like this division continually lacks that quality. And maybe Honesty Policy is the new star on the stage, but there is a chance I'm reaching for that because I'm so desperate to see a star in the staying division. Okay, on to the Silver Cup now. Handicap Chase here. This is going to be run at 3 p.m. £100,000 up for grabs in prize money. This is a rich race and usually very competitive. I suppose it's a smaller field than usual here, and it's currently headed by Blow Your Wad, who I believe, Ross, you put up last time. I don't know what price he was, but he's currently 4 to 1 for a Silver Cup. Maybe he will go better than finishing third last time, but he's not for me. Victorino is next in the market, going for a third consecutive win in the race. Then you have Johnny Rock, who's currently who's currently 5 to 1, and then Pick Rock, who's 11 to 2. Competitive race. Are you with Blow Your Wad or not?
No, I'm not, TC. I mean, I think the softer ground, if you remember, I put him up last time, it was his first try at 3 miles, and I thought it would suit him. And it did, and it almost looked like he wanted a little bit more of a stamina test on good to soft ground. So the softer ground might help him, but he got bumped a pound or two for finishing third. So I can see his chance. I'd be very surprised if he goes off favourite on the day. I have to say, Johnny Who, there'll always be plenty of money for him because he's habitually seen as being well handicapped. He habitually runs a race that's pretty solid and makes a howler somewhere along the way. And, people say next time he'll be one to follow. So I can scratch him off pretty much very easily, whatever race he's in. Pick Rock I like, and I think you have to upgrade his run in the Hennessy last time, where he was one of the worst to come off from that stupid standing start, finished fifth. The 4 in front of him had all been ridden prominently. So I think you have to upgrade him. I have a slight concern about his jumping round Ascot on these undulations are just, going down the back. He is a sort of horse that can just get on his forehand sometimes and not adjust. So he's got a chance, but I went against him. Come down on the winner of the last 2 years, which is Victorino for Venetia Williams and Charlie Deutsch. I did say last week that I thought they were just coming into a little bit of form. I got fairly lambasted for that in the comments you might have seen, but she did have a winner at Doncaster. She did have a winner at Cheltenham and has had a pretty good week. The mud will certainly help this horse. He's down from 149 to 146 in 3 runs, all away from Ascot, and that is important because Ascot, his record is excellent, 4 wins from 5 starts. He won it off 146 last year. He won it off 142 the year before. So he's bang there on his ratings. He ran poorly in the Hennessy, as he did last year before winning this race. Charlie Deutsch, I watched him a couple of times this week on a couple of winners and also a couple of horses that actually didn't win, but got far closer than I had any chance really of, or any reason to legitimately get to. He's a really fine rider over fences. I think Victorino's got loads going for him, and he's still a fairly decent price as we record this. But I also wanted to just have a small each way on Galore, who I mentioned last week, really nearly made my shortlist for the December Gold Cup, but it was just the trip and the sort of drying ground that I didn't like for him. I think they were very sensibly, I'm sure James is going to be pleased to hear me think that he's sensible, very sensibly took him out of that race. He's come here, the ground is going to be softer, 3 miles, which is undoubtedly this horse's trip at this stage of his life. He ran pretty well in the Charlie Hall. He was beaten 22 lengths by Jello. He was going to be close than that, but he made a mistake at, I think, the third or fourth last, entering the home straight, and that put him on the back foot, and they went away from him. And then he sort of raced in isolation, and I think that probably exaggerated the margin of defeat. Go back to his final start last year in the celebration chase at Sandown. He was third behind Gaelic Warrior. Now, that's really decent form, and he was only 5.5 lengths behind. Gaelic Warrior won comfortably, of course. He's a high-class horse. Mark of 154 gets reduced by £7 by Isabel Ryder, who I mentioned very early on this season. She's getting stronger in a finish, as I suggested she might need to. But what I love about her riding is she's very rarely in the wrong place. She rides with sort of quite a mature head, take a position, and she's very, very good to an obstacle. Galore will need that because he's not always the best jumper. I think off, a reduced weight with her claim, the first time in a handicap for ages, and this is the first race he's got a legitimate chance in. He's a big double figure price. It wouldn't be at all a surprise to see him run a really big race.
Yeah, an outside shout then for Garlaw at 25 to 1. Ross also likes Victorino at 5 to 1, much higher up in the market, as you would imagine. And it's going to be Victorino for me as well, for basically the same reason that Ross said, returning to Ascot for Venetia Williams, whose horses are starting to run better. I did see those comments. I do think you were harshly treated by a few of our viewers last week, but the horses from Williams Yard are starting to run better, and they're going to continue to run better over this period. It's generally where she starts to strike gold. And Victorino coming back to this race, quite clearly been his target. I think we're going to see a good performance down to a nice rating. And this weather that we've already talked about should be right up his alley. So Victorino as well for me. I will say that I did originally want Pick Rock in this spot, and I put him down in our WhatsApp group that he was going to be my selection. However, the rain just puts me off him a touch. He jumps better on good ground. I know he's got form on soft, but he jumps better on good ground. He could play a big part, and I do think he is well handicapped. And as Ross said, he ran very well in the Coral Gold Cup, but I just think the weather and the ground is going to be more suitable for Victorino, who quite clearly blew up in the Hennessy last time and was using that as a prep for this race. SBK, by the way, has a 20% winnings boost on the Silver Cup, the 3 o'clock at Ascot. So make sure you take advantage of that. T's and C's do apply, and check out all the other offers and promotions that SBK is running this week and going into the festive period on the app or the website. Finally, then, for our feature races, we're going to end with a festive handicap hurdle, the 3:35 at Ascot, last race on their card. I thought this was extremely interesting. Not only because of the horses that are in the field, but also the anti-post move for Mondo Man, who tops the market currently at a very short 2 to 1 for Gary and Josh Moore. He has grade 2 placed form over hurdles, but he's never won in this sphere. So interesting that he's so short in the market. And it's not a weak race by any means. We've got the likes of Alexi, the Great Wood Hurdle winner in this field. We've also got Fiercely Proud, who won this race 12 months ago. And I'm going to go early with my selection here, Ross, which is unusual given the usual running order we go through here. But we've also got Willful in this race. He's around 6 to 1, and he's going to be my pick. I don't know what you make of Willful, but I think he is chucked in off this mark. I'm just kind of waiting for him to produce it on the track. I'm very hopeful that we're going to get it this week. Now, the question mark again could be the ground, depending on how soft it gets. He has got form on soft ground, but you would usually assume this horse is better with a bit of good in the going description. However, that run at Chepstow last time, he finished third behind Alexi, who was obviously reopposing in here, but has subsequently won twice, including the Great Wood, and is now £19 worse off with Willful. Surely we're going to see a form reversal there. Sorry, Alexi was second in that race. The winner was Celtic Dino, who's subsequently come out and finished second in a grade 2. And Willful, to me, wasn't asked for maximum effort. So he is going to be my pick, each way at 6 to 1. If his price shortens, I'll probably play him win only. Do you like Willful or something else?
Yeah, he was one of the last off my shortlist, TC. I'm still pretty concerned about the form of the yard, I have to say. And he's just let me down on a couple of occasions where I thought he looked very well handicapped, and he's just sort of managed to get himself in a spot of bother through the race and looks an unlucky loser. But you're right. I think Alexi is the horse to frame the race around. If you take his Greatwood performance literally, he's clearly still very upwardly mobile. But I thought the Greatwood was an absolute diabolical renewal this year. Houndvine is £9 better off for 6 lengths. He should technically reverse that form, but he is an habitual placed horse, doesn't often win. So I did think Wilford was interesting. I just have a concern about the yard at the moment. I'd rather wait and watch until they start to hit a little patch of form, which they invariably do for a few weeks. I thought Live Conti was interesting on his first start, but I wonder whether he's going to be good enough off this mark to win it first time out. I just think that he might be a sort of project for the yard. And the more I look, the more I just like the claims of Mondo Man. 105 rated flat horse. That might flatter him a bit. I would concede that. But he ran pretty well over hurdles last year, despite doing everything wrong all of the time. Far too free. Caelan Quinn struggled with him last year. A couple of times really struggled to get him settled, which had a result of getting his head up in the air. If you've got your head in your air and you're a horse, you don't tend to be looking at what's in front of you. And that, in this case, was hurdles for Mondo Man. And he didn't always hurdle particularly fluently, but he still had some decent pieces of juvenile form, second and third behind some quite smart horses. I thought his return at Lingfield was pretty good. Went through the race far better, dropped the bridle at the back of the field, cruised through, looked like he was going to win fairly comfortably. And I think he then blew up and on top of that made a mistake at the last and got beaten by Mossy Fen Road, who's a horse of Harry Derham's, so they hold in pretty high regard. I think that was definitely a sighter for something later in the season. Gary Moore and Josh Moore's form has turned upside down since November. 105 rated flat horse racing off a mark of just 123. Big field. You'll be able to drop him out the back. Let's hope he settles like he did last time. I think this is a really well handicapped horse, and I think he'll win this.
There could be quite a few well handicapped horses in this race if both Ross and I are correct, and not just our selections, but other horses we've mentioned that are also lining up in this field. So definitely watch the 3:35 at Ascot. Hopefully one of us will put up the winner, but it's a race where you want to be keeping that tracker open and remembering a couple of the horses in behind for next time up. Okay then, NAP and next best time. Ross, you can go first.
NAP comes Saturday morning, 11:45 at Haydock, because of course that's what time people want to be getting to a race course on a Saturday. Pounds at a time for Toby Laws comes up from Toby Laws, who's down south. That was interesting straight away. And this horse had a couple of entries over the weekend, and they've come here. He really caught my eye as final start, qualifying start for a handicap market. Chepstow finished fourth, travelled comfortably the best or second best into the race behind the winner, turning in. Tom Cannon was on board that time. He sat and popped the first hurdle in the straight, whereas the two leaders kicked and took a couple lengths out of him. And then Tom found himself in a little bit of a pocket behind tiring horses. Eventually got himself extricated, stayed on really nicely in the close stages. That was over 2 miles. It's got a mark of 104 to start off with. You're then just going to have a look at his bumper form, second in a bumper in Ireland between two Willie Mullins horses. The winner is Sortudo. He's won his maiden already in Ireland this year. Is being talked of as one of Willie's novice horses for the Cheltenham Festival. Back in third was Runcock. He's rated 141 over hurdles. You, of course, cannot use bumper form to accurately describe how well handicapped a horse is. But what it does do is suggest this horse has got an engine. Ben Macy takes £3 off in this conditionals race. He's good value for his £3 against fellow conditionals. I think it's inch and they go north for a handicap debutant. Goes up in trip. Slower ground will suit him. I think pounds at the time is probably very well ahead of his official ability. So he's the nap in the 11:45. And then the next best. Now this is a fly. I was going to put up Bill Joyce in the beginner's chase, but I'm just a bit concerned that he got off a very short price, and we don't like that. So I've taken a flyer instead with No Ordinary Joe in the 12:55, who runs for about the fourth time in 4 weeks. But I'm sure there's still some ability in this horse, and we saw last week Faye Brownlee is a very, very astute trainer. He ran last week at Cheltenham on the Friday, and I thought he shaped with some real promise. Was travelling very nice into contention under Kevin Brogan, and then absolutely flattened the third last hurdle, and that seemed to put paid to all chance, and he wasn't sort of given a hard ride after that. He's £13 now below his last or his highest ever mark. He's £5 below his last winning mark. Ben Macy takes another £7 off. I think it's just really interesting they go again 8 days later. Now it could well be they're going 8 days later because they're trying to get his mark down for something later in the year. But if you're doing that, I'm not sure you use a £7 claimer that, as far as I can see, is not associated to the yard to ride him. He's a high class horse in his day. A bit of soft ground, a flat track round Haydock should suit him. So I expect him to be a price, and I'm fully prepared that he's out the back with the washing, but I'll take a chance on No Ordinary Joe.
Confident nap then at pounds at a time, and a speculative next best in No Ordinary Joe. They go on 11.45 and the 12.55, both at Haydock for Ross on Saturday. My nap is going to be a horse that's already mentioned. That is Willful, each way at 11 to 2 in the 3.35 at Ascot. Won't go through the whole blurb again, but I do think he's very well handicapped, and hopefully he can run a nice race. And the other horse I'll be betting the only other horse I'll be betting that we haven't talked about so far domestically on Saturday goes in the 1:30 at Haydock, and that is Escape and Evade. So I suppose he's got to be my next best. He ran second behind Highland's Legacy on his penultimate outing. That horse placed earlier this week at Newbury, ran second off a £9 higher mark. Last time, Escape and Evade challenged a horse called David's Well, who subsequently won at Cheltenham last week off a £6 higher mark and is now rated even higher. So the form suggests that Escape and Evade is more than capable of winning off this current rating, despite the fact that he has gone up in the weights himself. Harry Derham seems to have found the key to this big and awkward Scopy sort, who used to be with James Hewitt. So fingers crossed Escape and Evade can win the 1:30 at Haydock. He's my next best, but I do really like Willful each way at Ascot as my nap. Okay then, a week to go until the big festive Christmas podcast. That's going to be filmed next Tuesday, just to let you know, on the 23rd. So if you are interested to hear what both Ross and myself like throughout the festive months, then make sure you watch that. And to just get the heads up on that, you need to subscribe down below to SBK, as previously mentioned, and also click the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any future content, which also includes Miller's Movers run by Ross every single week. Like this video, please comment any horses that you like this week or throughout the festive period. And while you're there, share with your friends. If you thought the podcast was nice or decent, entertaining, insightful, any of that rubbish, then send them the link and hopefully they can watch too and profit. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget that SBK has that 20% winnings boost on the Silver Cup at Ascot this week. That's at 3 o'clock. If you are interested in that, go to the SBK app, make sure you check it out on the promos and offers section, but you don't need to opt in. You'll just get that winnings boost. And if you don't have an SBK account, but you want to take advantage of the winnings boost, make sure you sign up now. New customers can place their first £10 bet, and they'll get £40 in free bets when they sign up to SBK. Again, T's and C's do apply, but make sure you take advantage of these brilliant offers. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully we picked plenty of winners and not placed horses this week. Best of luck with any of your bets, and we'll see you again on Tuesday for the big festive edition. Goodbye.